Today, on Be Something Wonderful, you are the God you've been praying to and waiting for. Manifest insanely fast. I am your host, Tom Kearin, and these are the studios of Be Something Wonderful, where we help you level up and become the best version of yourself. Creators, good morning and welcome back to the studios of Be Something Wonderful. I heard from one of you that reaches out from time to time, but this time you said, the rumors that nothing has been moving for me, that I haven't been able to manifest what I desire, have been greatly exaggerated by me. In other words, by himself. He exaggerated his own rumors. Think about this. He started out by saying this, wow, I'm seeing now that manifesting is just another trap. He's pointing to some recent videos where we talk about the teachings of Thomas Troward in his Edinburgh lectures. And Troward brings a powerful example that I've talked about in one or two videos recently, over the last few days, where when you bring a lighted candle into a room, that room becomes illuminated. When you take that lighted candle away, the room becomes dark again. And then he says this, now, the illumination and the darkness are both conditions. In other words, the illuminated room and the darkened room are both conditions. The one positive, the illumination, resulting from the presence of the light, or in other words, the presence of you as light. And the other negative resulting from its absence. The absence of you focusing on your desired reality as the light. And he says here, every positive condition has an exactly opposite negative condition corresponding to it. And that this correspondence results from their being related to the same cause or source. One positively and the other negatively. In other words, both of those conditions are related to the one source, the one cause, you as I am awareness. But the positive condition of the illumination are reflecting the true nature of you as reality. And the negative condition is just the absence of that true nature of who you are. It's the absence of you as light. This is why he said that, wow, I'm seeing now that I'm manifesting is just another trap. In other words, you're like a lighthouse trying to manifest your own light. So you see these darkened conditions because you can't see your own light. You are the light. So the lighted candle, think about that representing first cause or the source. I am the light of the world. That's why the ancients said that. Ultimate reality, or in other words, the cause or source of all conditions. But all conditions, whether positive or negative, are simply secondary causes. They're not source or cause of anything. In your positive, true you as pure positive energy, that's the ultimate reality. That's why negative conditions, when we say they're not real or don't have reality, that's the truth, because they're simply the absence of the ultimate reality of you as light. You're like a lighthouse searching for your own light. You're like a lighthouse trying to manifest your own light. That's why he said it feels like a trap. I want to go into some of his insights. But look at this idea that they're both conditions. The illuminated room and the darkened room are both conditions. But they're both secondary conditions to the light that you are. That's what creates the idea of opposites. He says here, every positive condition has exactly opposite negative condition corresponding to it. That correspondence results from their being related to the same source, the same cause. The one positively and the other negatively. That's the basis of all the universal laws. The laws that all the manifesting teachers and gurus talk about. The law of correspondence, the law of attraction, the law of opposites, the law of resonance, the law of vibration, the law of attraction, the law of polarity. But all of those are lesser laws. You are the one law. I am the law. I am the source. I am the light. None of those are possible. without you as the light. All of those are created from the absence of that light that you are. Wow. That's powerful. So I want to show this. There you are. I am the first cause. I am light itself. I am all that is. I am consciousness, awareness. I am that one divine mind. But what happens is we swing between the idea of the presence of our light, positive conditions, while we're trying to manifest our desired reality. And we see some things that seem positive. We're believing it. But we're attached to those conditions, trying to manifest from inside the frame, from inside the condition itself. Do you see? From inside the idea of a secondary cause. Then you swing over here to the absence of the light, the negative condition. The candle being removed, the lighted candle being removed from the room or taken away from the room, where you start doubting it. Both of these, you're attached to secondary causes. You're attached to secondary conditions. Wow. You see, both of these, you're attached to the idea of these secondary manifesting causes. The people, places, and things, the thoughts and feelings, all of those, trying to manifest from inside that frame. But first cause is here in the vertical. That's primary cause. This is you as all that is. The highest ideal of who you are as Christ consciousness. And then you as that relative first cause. When you create an image, you are the primary source of that image. It's not coming from secondary causes, from changing thoughts and feelings and perceptions and images. It's you as first cause creating that. And then you do have a manifested experience, but it's always you as first cause. You're no longer focused on secondary causes. This is the conversation we had. Sherwood says this, a condition, whether positive or negative, is never primary cause. It's never source. It's related to source, right? Remember, a positive condition is the illumination of you illuminating something as that light. And the negative condition is simply the absence of you as that light, the absence of that focus. They're both related to that, but they're never primary. The primary cause of any series, in other words, any series of events or experiences, can never be negative. Can never be negative. For negation is the condition which arises from the absence of active causation. Wow. We talked about that in a few videos. We're going to go further with this today, though. Right? That is a condition that arises from the absence of you actively knowing yourself as the relative first cause of all that is. We say relative because it's relative to what? It's relative to the Father or the field, everything that you are. You are that, but through your physical perspective personality, you create a perspective or a viewpoint as all that is. But you're still first cause. But you surrender that idea when you're focused on the secondary conditions. Trying to feel better and flip thoughts and searching for the next process or technique that's going to do it for you. Stay with me here. We're going to come back to this. And so I just want to point out, again, we've talked about this idea of the pendulum, but now we're talking about it as, here's the presence of you focusing on what you want, believing it, but you're still attached to it. You're still focused on secondary cause. It's the presence of light, but it's you focusing on the secondary cause, trying to make it happen. You are that light. It's the lighthouse trying to manifest its own light here. And then as you don't see it, you pull your light from that and say, it's not working, I'm doubting it. You're still attached. Positive attachment and negative attachment, you're attached to these conditions, trying to manifest it from inside the secondary cause. Wow. And I just want to point out that this particular creator is right. Manifesting can be just another trap that keeps you swinging like a pendulum between positive and negative conditions, focused on secondary causes. As the invisible walls of the labyrinth or the matrix get taller, as you feel more trapped by the physical reality or the physical experience. Whether it's positive conditions or negative conditions, you're still focused on secondary cause. and you swing back and forth between them. You swing to the positive side that creates the illusion of fulfillment, that you're finally escaping the trap, right? The illusion that you've found the exit from the labyrinth. And then you go to the negative side. Oh, it's taken time, something comes up, another circumstance, another condition, where it seems hopeless and you feel that you're lost in the labyrinth, in the matrix of secondary causation. You feel like you'll never get out. You feel like you've almost found the exit. You've seen signs, you're going to manifest it. You found another process or a technique or a meditation or a subliminal or a coach, or you tried tapping, or you tried the Sedona method. Now you're reprogramming your subconscious. You tried all of these things. The new affirmation. But you just keep swinging back and forth. Yeah, a few positive conditions, but you're still attached to the idea of secondary causes, trying to make something happen. The lighthouse trying to manifest its own light. So how do you free yourself from the maze of secondary causation? How do you free yourself from that labyrinth or that maze, that matrix where it seems like there's no way out? Every corner is another wall, and the walls just keep getting taller as you struggle to find a way out. Just when you believe there's a way out, the illusion of fulfillment, you're on the positive side, you've manifested some positive conditions, right? But you're still focused on secondary conditions, secondary causes, and not yourself as the source and illumination itself. So how do you free yourself? Where's the exit? Well, Vadim Zeland in Reality Transurfing, and I've pointed his teachings before, he tells us this: well, you cannot actually free yourself because there's no exit. In other words, you're like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. You always had the power. In other words, you can just walk out. The secret to the labyrinth is that the walls will crumble. Those invisible walls crumble when you give up looking for the exit. When you give up trying to manifest your own light. The walls crumble, you just walk out. You've always been free. In other words, you've always been that light. You are that light that illuminates that room, and you've always been that light. The darkness or the dark conditions are only created from the absence of that knowing, or the absence of your focus on being that light. You struggling to manifest, you struggling for that exit. There's no way out of that labyrinth because it's an illusion. The walls crumble, those invisible walls just crumble in that knowing. Wow. In other words, you have been free the entire time. In that realization, the invisible walls crumble, and you walk out from the self-imposed trap of secondary causation, secondary causes, secondary conditions, into the field or the Father of first cause. Remember when Jesus says, I go to the Father, right? I and the Father are one. I go to the Father. But the Father is greater than I. The field's greater than any possible perspective or viewpoint, but I'm one with it. So I must be first cause too. What is that first cause? I'm relative first cause, relative to the field. But I'm still first cause. I'm not a condition. You're primary causation. I am that I am. Troward says this: now the only way of escape, the only way to escape, is by rising out of the region of secondary causes into that of the primary causation, where the originating energy is to be found before it is yet passed into manifestation as a condition, a secondary condition. In other words, you're always in that spirit, but you create the idea of trying to manifest something within you're trapped within your own frame, your own physical frame. But then you ask, well, where, Tom? Where is it? Where is that region? How do I get there? Well, Troward tells us this region is to be found within ourselves. The kingdom of God is within. It all is the same. It is the region of pure ideas. Wow. Pure thought. Not the changing thoughts and feelings that come up to the day of the changing people, events, and circumstances, those changing conditions, but pure thought. Your ideal of who you are. Not as created from the conditions or the other manifested circumstances or conditions or manifesting thoughts and feelings, but what you say you are. versus the manifested form, versus the things, the thoughts, the feelings, the people, the events, the circumstances, the conditions, the images, the perceptions. None of them are you. They're all secondary causation. You, as pure thought, you can create a pure image of who you really are, that ideal. That's powerful. All things, whether physical or non-physical, seen or unseen, have their origin in spirit. In other words, spirit's not defined as the invisible versus the visible. Spirit is the only reality. Invisible or not visible, or physical or not physical, is irrelevant because there's no duality. There's no relativity at all. It's just you as spirit. First cause, the great I am. The idea that it's seen or not seen, or physical, not physical, is irrelevant to all of it. All of those ideas are idea of duality, right? You have a seen circumstance or appearance as people, events, and circumstances, or an unseen, a thought or feeling. But there's still conditions. The one universal divine mind, the Father, or the ancients called it the Father, right, in Scripture, or the scientists called it the field of consciousness, the quantum field, whatever it is, the Father of the field. That's first cause, that one divine mind. That's the great causation. What you might call the great subconscious. But remember, it's only sub to what? I am. I and the Father are one. It's only subject to you as the center. You are relative first cause. And then you have your conscious mind or your subjective identity or truth. But your power of your subjective mind, you as that relative first cause, it's identical. That's what Troward told us. The power of that great subconscious, the great I am. God in that infinity that God is. Right? That deductive and personal power, that creative power, that power is identical to you as the Son of God, or as a son of existence, or as that focus of that field of consciousness. So your subjective identity or truth, it is decided by you. You get to, it's the same power. Yes, and Troward talks about the idea of scale. It's a different scale, but it's a different scale because, remember, the field is, Father is greater than I, but the Father and I are one. It doesn't mean you can't manifest something. It means all miracles are possible. It's not about big or small, or something that's more possible or less possible. It's simply saying that you are that relative first cause. Relative to what? To you as the field. The only limitations, hear this, the only limitations to you invoking this power that you are, it's identical, to manifest the life of your wildest dreams, are those that you put there yourself with your focus on secondary causation. Wow, that's it. All the doubts and fears are because you're focused on secondary causes, secondary conditions. That's what creates all of that struggle. And so you look for the next technique, or subliminal, or maybe you try tapping, or this and that. Always, all of that is secondary causation. You are source, you are first cause. This power is identical. Wow. And then you ask, okay, but what do I do, Tom, you ask? I know. Go to the end. Troward told us, conditions are never causes in themselves, but only subsequent links of a chain started on the plane of pure ideal. Wow. Right? I am that I am. What we have to do, he tells us, what we have to do is reverse our method of thinking, or in other words, assumption, and regard the ideal as the real. In the outward manifestation, all outward manifestations, thoughts, feelings, images, perceptions, people, events, and circumstances, all conditions, as the mere reflection, which must change with every change of the object which cast it. I like that he uses object here. When he says object, he's referring to the one and only objective reality of I am that I am, existence itself. In other words, there's nothing, it's not subject to any other power, to any other law. to any other reality. It is reality itself. There's nothing relative to it. That's the only objective reality. I am the ultimate reality. I love that he uses that. In other words, who you say you are as that God, as that one reality. He says here, if we regard fulfillment, in other words, the fulfillment of your desires, as contingent upon any circumstances, past, present, or future, we are not making use of first cause. We have descended to the level of secondary causation, which is the regent of doubts and fears and limitations. You don't have to do anything with the doubts and fears and limitations. They're on a plane, they have their own thing, but you don't have to do anything with them. You don't have to descend to that level and try to deal with all that. You are source, you are cause. Know yourself as that relative first cause, as that one source. Instead of swinging between being the presence of that light and the absence of it. Go to the knowing that you are that light, the primary cause. That's the vertical. You are the relative first cause of that ultimate first cause of causation of God. Your relative first cause is the Son of God. So when you create an image, that's reality, period. You are source. You don't have to get your cues or evidence from these manifested secondary causes. You're it. That's powerful. You are God. You've been praying to. You're the God you've been praying to and waiting for. Manifest insanely fast. I am your host, Tom Kearin, and these are the studios of Be Something Wonderful, where we help you level up and become the best version of yourself. Creators, be sure to join us on the Tom Kearin channel. We just released a huge video there. Over the last few days, we've been unpacking these ideas, these lectures of Thomas Trillward. And so you should check those out. They're all powerful. They all tie in to today's video. And we're going to have a membership live stream at the end of this month on the 28th. So be sure, we're going to announce that again. Be sure to join us on the membership channel. With great light, with great love, and infinite gratitude, this is Tom Kearin here in the studios of Be Something Wonderful. Until next time, we'll see you soon.